Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new week of online learning. As you can see, I've kept the tradition alive of having my dog Nova with a beautiful different outfit in the beginning of every video. Check out this top of the line Dollarama Canadian bandana. Good stuff. Now, that being said, he's an excellent sport, but he's also like, I was napping, and what kind of cruelty is this that you woke me up and made me start this video? So I'm going to let him down and get into the instruction, but as promised, the tradition lives on. Okay. Bye, bud. Okay. So, what's happening for science this week? You will have likely noticed that there is a new way for you to be receiving your materials. So, we have now put all of your subjects into one Google Classroom to make your lives and our lives easier in terms of keeping track of your work and managing your calendars and figuring out what assignments are supposed to be done when. So this is meant to make all of our lives easier. And there is a Google Meet with your homeroom teacher, so with Mark, that you guys will be attending. Now, I just wanted to mention this. So I do have my links as of right now. The plan is for these to be consistent from here on out. The only way that this wouldn't be the case is if ultimately they decide to just have like one Google Classroom link, essentially for like just grade 9. But that being said, as of right now, the plan is that these will be your links every Tuesday, and there's a new Google Meet which will be offered on Fridays for you, and these will be subject specific. So you'll have your science Google Meet Tuesdays at 11:30, just like normal, but there will also now be an additional Google Meet offered Fridays, and that'll be at 11 a.m. And those will be every week from here on out. However long this takes. All right. So the only thing that could potentially change is this link if they decide to do it by just one classroom link, and that'll be communicated well early in advance. But as of right now, that's a plan. Click on those links. I have it set up through your calendar, so you should be getting a notification like 10 minutes earlier. But just for whatever reason that doesn't happen, then that's your schedule, and those are your links, and that's what'll be happening when. All right. So, that being said, you guys have been doing a great job of showing up and being there and asking questions. And so, you guys have shown you're kind of figuring things out. So, well done. Next thing, I just wanted to talk about your Rube Goldberg machine. So thank you so much for those of you who shared your Rube Goldberg machines. I've been super impressed with the videos that have been coming in and what I've seen. Honestly, the videos have given me like so much joy when people celebrate at the end. It's awesome, and the pictures have been great. So thank you for those who did share their Rube Goldberg machines. That being said, you can take them down now. We're not going to do anything additional to those Rube Goldberg machines. So if it's still set up in like your parents' office or something, then feel free to take them down. But thanks for those who shared. They were great. So now we are focused on chemistry. I mentioned this in our Google Meet on Tuesday. So chemistry will be our focus. And I'm going to take the most important elements of what you will see in high school moving forward for what we're focusing on over however long this online learning environment takes place. And if we're back in school, it'll be focusing on the stuff you need for high school there too. So I do have it broken down by the topics that we are focusing on. So here's my goal. So for chemistry, I have outlined the specifics that we'll be looking at for chemistry. We've already started atomic theory, and we'll be continuing that on Tuesday. And also the periodic table, we'll also be focusing on that over the next 2 weeks too. So I just wanted to draw your attention there if you're wondering where this is going and what we're doing. That's it. All right. So those slideshows will be super important to go with the instruction that we'll be doing. And there'll be slideshows in French and slideshows in science. And those slideshows will align with our Google Meets, but they're also going to be modified as we get new material and as we move on with the instructions. So just make sure that you can access those slideshows, and they'll be posted in your Google Classroom under the science topic. So now, what are we doing for science? So this is essentially an overview of the next 2 weeks for science. I do have a new challenge for you, but it's entirely optional. So this challenge here is just if you would like to try it. And if you have the time and you have the resources and you have the materials, then I encourage you to do this challenge. Otherwise, I have additional stuff that we'll be doing all together. But this here is just if you want to tackle it and give it a try. So you may have been seeing a lot of people making sourdough bread recently. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that yeast is so hard to come by right now in the middle of this pandemic, but also this particular goal of making sourdough bread actually aligns really well with chemistry. So I thought that I would set it up as a challenge. But that being said, like obviously, if you don't have enough flour to do this, then don't, and things like that. And I have a couple of warnings here. So there will be a bit of a smell in the beginning. It'll be kind of like vinegary. And also you need enough flour to feed your starter. Okay. But that being said, if you have bread, or if you have flour and if you have time, and if you don't mind a bit of a vinegar smell, it's not forever, it's only just for a little while. But if you have a space where you can store it, then I encourage you to do this. So baking is applied microbiology. So all yeast breads, they owe their shapes and textures to microbes, actually. So if you have a piece of bread around you, if you cut it and you look at it, then you'll see that there's like air pockets, and that is because of the rise, which comes from yeast, right? So the yeast used to create bread can be purchased or cultivated. So many of us are used to just purchasing it in the stores, but maybe you can't find it in the stores, which is why sourdough is becoming so popular right now. Then you can actually cultivate it from the environment around us in the form of a levain or sourdough starter. So these produce breads that have a depth of flavor that they say it tastes a bit better. I guess that's subjective. But that being said, they're a bit more forgiving, I guess, thanks to the longer fermentation time in terms of their ability to rise and things like that. So this does take time, and you have to maintain the culture. So what do I mean by that? I'll explain here. So essentially all you need is flour and water. So if you happen to have distilled water, then that works great too. But flour, water, tap water is fine. So you mix equal amounts, and then you turn it into a paste, and you put it in like a glass jar, or a container or whatever, and then you loosely cover it. So there should be a bit of air that's getting into it. And eventually it will have pockets of gas that percolate through this seemingly inert glob. And that means that it's alive. So they call it like a very low maintenance pet. So you do have to feed it every day, and then you watch it grow, right? So as the microbes eat the sugars in the flour, they exhale carbon dioxide, and they produce the bubbles that turn a flat, dense loaf into something light and fluffy. So it takes time. It'll take like a week, and you'll have to discard parts of the dough as you're going along. Now, that discarded dough can be used to make another starter, or can be used to make pizza dough, or like whatever. I wouldn't like throw it in the garbage. Certainly don't be wasteful with it. But if you do choose to do this, then there's actually a good YouTube link here that outlines how to do it. And the only thing that I would criticize the YouTube link at all is his explanation is excellent. The only thing is he says that you can throw out the part as you go along. I wouldn't do that. I would just find a way to be creative and use that dough. So pizza dough would work well. But this being said, it is a great use of chemistry. It's great if you have the time. and you get some yummy sourdough bread at the end of it. So that's your challenge. I'm not giving you a set date for it because this is a time-consuming thing that you can choose if you choose to do it. But otherwise, it's a great use of chemistry. And I would love if you do this challenge, take a picture of your bread afterwards and send it to me, and I'll know how they turned out. So now, what are you doing this week? So I actually have a 2-week plan for you guys, and I'm putting the official due date as next Friday for this. But that being said, in terms of your time management, I would do this part this week, and then I would do the second part to this next week. But once again, you're old enough, you can budget your time and figure out what'll work best for you. I'm just giving you comprehensively as a whole now, so you can choose what works best given your other subjects and given your time that you have access to a computer or access to do this at your house. So you're going to go on a scavenger hunt this week. So you're going to look around your house, or neighborhood. Ideally, you'll actually go outside to do some of this too. But that being said, if you're totally stuck in the house, going around your house is fine. And you're going to find things that are made from the elements of the periodic table. So I have the suggestion to complete that this week. And then next week, you're going to choose an element to delve deeper and research. And then both of those things will be due next Friday. So you don't have to submit anything this week, but the scavenger hunt, so you can take the amount of time that you need to do this, and then the actual looking at one particular element more closely will both be due for next Friday. Okay, so the scavenger hunt I'm going to lay out this week, and then next week I'll post the template for looking at one element more closely. I just am mentioning it this week so that you can give proper thought to what element you would actually like to learn more about. So this is your scavenger hunt template. Now, I'm saying find as many of the elements as you can in the world around you. Now, obviously, I want to say within reason. So some elements are dangerous. Some elements are rare. Like, obviously, don't pick up an element that's dangerous. Just like take a look at the world around you, use your common sense, and look at something, and you can list that. You certainly don't have to pick this up and gather them. Looking at it is fine because some things are corrosive and some things you just don't want to mess with. And your goal is just to get an understanding of what elements make up everything that we use in our everyday lives and that we use around us. So you're going to list the elements that you find by atomic number. And then I have a full periodic table on the next page of this for reference. So make sure that you scroll through this document so that you also have access to a periodic table if you need it. Now, that being said, if you were able to print a periodic table or you have your own copy of a periodic table, it might be kind of annoying scrolling back and forth the whole time. So if you have your own copy, that'll make your lives a bit easier as you're going around and doing this scavenger hunt. So as you're going around and looking at objects, you'll probably have to do a bit of research to figure out potentially what's in some of these objects. So this is your best guess as to whether that element is in that object, okay? So I have 2 done for you just so you can see how this looks like. So the atomic number of nickel is 28. Now, by the atomic number, I'm talking about the amount of protons, which is the atomic number in that element of the periodic table. So hydrogen is 1, helium is 2, lithium is 3, beryllium's 4. It's that number, the number of protons, that consistent atomic number for that element in the periodic table. Now, some of these are like out to lunch. You're not going to be able to find them around your environment and around your house, but many of the more common ones, which we'll be more concerned about in chemistry anyway, are the ones that you will be able to find. So I certainly don't expect you to find every single element in the periodic table. That's crazy and probably actually unsafe, but I expect you to do your best to find the common ones that you can see in the world around you. So I'm not giving you a set limit on these because it'll be different depending what you actually find. But that being said, I would encourage you to try to find approximately 20 or so. Okay, so But that being said, it'll look different depending on who you are and what you have access to. So, just as an example, a belt buckle is made out of nickel, and a baking mat can be made out of silicon. So, I have those two. Now, just be careful as you're numbering them that those align with your atomic number and not the order. All right. So the reason I'm having you do that is so you get a better understanding of how many protons they have, where they're situated in the periodic table, and it'll just make it easier as we start naming compounds and as we start getting more into the periodic table. So if you get used to writing those numbers, then you could do that now. All right. Oh my goodness, my nose is running. Okay. So this periodic table, your scavenger hunt, your goal is to complete that for this week. And then your goal is to figure out what element you would like to learn more about for the focusing and doing more research on a particular element that'll be rolled out next week. Okay? So you have a new challenge if you so choose to accept it, which is making sourdough bread and forming your own yeast or pet from the different gases that you can form from a sourdough bread. So it's pretty cool that we can actually do that. Like if you can't find access to yeast, it's like, oh, well, we can just cultivate our own, which is kind of neat, at least if you're nerdy like me. But if that's not your thing, you don't have access to it. Now, once again, that is optional. But the thing that is not optional is to do the periodic table scavenger hunt, get familiar with what's exists in the world around you, what elements make them up, and then get more comfortable with where those elements are placed on the periodic table and what those atomic numbers are, and then figure out what you might want to learn more in depth about in terms of a particular element on the periodic table. All right, now, once again, Tuesdays, we're going to get more into the chemistry focus. So we are focusing on atomic theory this week, and specifically last week, we looked at Einstein, the atomic model, and we looked at isotopes. So those are the three main things that we focused on last week, and we'll be continuing to build on that this week. So if you missed our Google Meet last week, then it would be in your interest to take a look through the slideshow in the first couple of slides to familiarize yourself with the atomic structure, the atomic model, and what an isotope is. All right. So that's it for today. Once again, my awkward sign off, and then I'll have a separate video for you in French. Bye.